Hello! Welcome back to music class with Mr. Paulette. Today, instead of doing another song, I just wanted to introduce another instrument. So lately in class we've gone over a lot of different types of instruments. We've learned that there are different instrument families. If you remember the 4 types of families, the first one we talked about was percussion, we talked about strings, we talked about woodwinds, and we talked about some brass instruments. When you see the next instrument, I want you to try to guess what kind of family does this instrument fit into. Are you ready? Ta-da! This instrument is called a trombone. Can you say trombone with me? Trombone. Good. The trombone is part of one of our families. Let's see. How would we figure out what kind of family it is? Well, let's start with the percussion family. The percussion instruments are any kind of drum that you might hit with a stick or with your hand, or perhaps something that you play by hitting it in a different way, like a xylophone. Do we hit this instrument to make it make sounds? Well, let's find out. That's kind of lame. No, I don't think this can be a percussion instrument. It really doesn't make good percussion sounds, in my opinion. This isn't, I don't know, it just doesn't seem right to me. Okay, so we can check percussion off the list. Next we have the strings family. Let's look really closely. Do we see any strings on this instrument? I don't see any. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you this isn't part of the strings family either. We can't play it with a bow. We can't play it by plucking it. Nothing happens. So it's definitely not part of the string family. So that leaves us woodwinds and brass. So a woodwind family instrument is something that makes sound by blowing into it. Let's see. That didn't work. So I don't think that this is part of the woodwind family. Also, it doesn't have a reed or any sort of buttons that you press down like a flute or a clarinet would. Those are real members of the woodwind family. So I want to go ahead and say this isn't part of the woodwind family. So that only leaves us with one. Can you say it with me? The brass family. Good, so this is part of the brass family. The way you play a brass instrument is that it has a mouthpiece. If you look really closely, this one's made of silver. Inside there's a hole you can look through. And you play it by going inside. You go. The wind and the buzzing together make a sound. And this whole contraption, this whole apparatus, this whole invention is just to make that sound clearer and into a tone. Are you ready? I just changed notes, but I didn't move anything. I didn't change anything. Isn't that weird? So brass instruments, fundamentally, or on a base level, can be changed by just changing what you do with your face. So just changing how tight or how fast that buzz is with your lips, you can change how the sound is. Now the trombone is special. Here's why. You don't only change notes by changing your face. The trombone has this whole contraption that moves. This is called a slide. The slide you hold right here, and it's a whole separate piece of the trombone that moves down and out. Boom, boom, boom. The whole thing can actually come right off. If you look right down, we have a tube that comes out of the mouthpiece, and it just ends. Luckily for us, we have this piece, and the air comes right down around this bottom part and goes right back through. So if we put it back on here, the air goes right down along here, back in through here, and up into this top part. This, again, can unscrew, and this is its own separate thing. These are 2 separate pieces. That's how it fits in a case really nicely. This part is called the horn. The horn attaches to the slide, screws in, and it makes the whole thing sound really clear. If you were to play it without the horn, with only the slide, it makes sounds. It sounds better than it did when we just tried to blow in it like a woodwind instrument or hit it like a percussion instrument or pluck it like a string instrument, but it still doesn't sound very good. That's where this part comes in. Can you just play this part by itself? You shouldn't, but it's possible. You see this little hole right here? If I take my face and I go the same way I do in here, it almost sounds like an old hunting horn, which is kind of cool. But together, the two pieces work together so you can change it with your face and change things with the slide. Now, this isn't my trombone. This is a student trombone that just lives here at the school. It belongs to the school. And it's not a really, really nice trombone. This would not really be very expensive money-wise, and it's kind of old. If you notice, it's kind of dirty, it's sort of well-worn, but I play trombone, so I want to show you my trombone. My trombone is a little bit fancy. If you look, this top part, the horn, looks a little bit different. We have an extra tube up here, and it's got this extra little thing that moves. You can even see this little spot where Mr. Paulette's worn away the actual metal by playing it so much. But by pulling this, there's a little valve that opens and closes in the back, which is pretty cool. What that does, the entire purpose of all this extra stuff, is by pulling this trigger, it does the exact same thing as going all the way out here, or going to 6th position for some of my 4th graders who are going to be going into music next year. By doing that, instead of having to go, I can just pull the trigger and go, which is really nice because it takes some extra time to go from here all the way up to there, which is kind of tricky. I could just go, so that's what that extra thing does on the back. And by changing the slide and using that thing, we can do all sorts of things on the trombone. So, what we've learned, the trombone is part of one of our 4 families. Which one was it a part of again? That's right, the brass family. This trombone has a special trigger that helps it do other cool things. That trombone doesn't have it, but it's still a good trombone. Most people start out on a trombone like that because trombones that have this extra thing cost a lot of money. And so, that's about it. The trombone is made of a bunch of different pieces. It's got the mouthpiece, which is separate from the horn. It has the horn. And it has the slide. And all of these parts work together to make the sound that you hear in a trombone. Allow me to put this back together really quick. There's one last thing to show you. There's one famous sound effect that you've probably heard that is made by a trombone. Just pay attention. Try to figure out if you've heard it somewhere else before. I'm sure you have. But I hope you enjoyed today's music lesson with Mr. Paulette, and I hope you have a great day. Enjoy the snow.